With the large crossover market one of the hottest in the industry right now, every manufacturer seems to be vying for a piece of the same pie with consumers. I'm here with the 2020 Hyundai Palisade, which seats 7 or 8, has a healthy dose of luxury, and when properly equipped can tow up to 5,000 pounds. So that begs the question, can this 3-row family crossover also be a great trackside support vehicle? Let's find out. So before we get into anything else, let's talk about the drivetrain in the Hyundai Palisade. All Palisades come with Hyundai's 3.8-liter Lambda 2 V6. This is a naturally aspirated V6 engine that actually has existed in some form since about 2010. It's been updated more recently, and it makes about 290 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Both of those numbers are achieved towards the higher end of the rev range, around 5,000 or 6,000. This engine is hooked up to an in-house Hyundai-developed 8-speed automatic in all Palisades, and front-wheel drive is standard, but all-wheel drive is optional and will probably come equipped on most Palisades that you see in the market. The engine delivers exactly how it should. It makes smooth, steady power as it builds to those peaks around 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. It's generally unobtrusive. It makes plenty of power and torque, and it kind of stays out of its own way. The transmission does an excellent job, and the all-wheel drive is just fine if it's needed. If you're towing, that maximum torque figure, as I said, is achieved higher in the rev range, so you're not going to be necessarily the fastest thing off the line, but it makes plenty of power and torque, and it'll keep you moving and up with highway pace, even with that maximum 5,000 pounds hooked up to the back of the car. So moving inside the Palisade, obviously the engine and drivetrain here, they do their jobs. They are entirely adequate, nothing too exciting, but that's okay. That's not the point of this car. The point of the Palisade is much more apparent when you move inside. Now, it needs to be said that the Palisade has a platform twin in the form of the Kia Telluride. Telluride is more or less the same exact vehicle with some different touches, some different styling, some different appointments. It also uses the same 3.8-liter V6, 8-speed automatic, and all-wheel drive drivetrain. Both the Palisade and the Telluride come very highly reviewed, as they should, given they're more or less siblings. However, Kia positions the Telluride as a little more sporty, whereas the Palisade is considered more of the luxury option between the two. So Hyundai is positioning this vehicle as affordable luxury for 3 rows and 7 or 8 passengers. Now, starting in the front, the Palisade makes a great first impression. My test vehicle is the Top Trim Limited, and that gives you Napa leather upholstery with some quilting on the door panels and the tops of the seats, you can see here. All sorts of memory options, power options. You have a 12-inch LCD gauge cluster. It's a full screen. And next to that is a 10-inch widescreen infotainment display. Both of these displays are very, very crisp, very quick to use, very easy to use, and they can be customized every which way, which is really cool because you can leave them in their normal default settings and tweak them just a little bit if you don't really care that much. But if, like me, you like to nerd out about the details and really dive into the options and make the vehicle feel like your own, you can absolutely do that. The infotainment system in particular is great. It's very easy to use, the graphics are excellent, and it's very responsive and snappy. I think what speaks the most to me is the fact that I haven't been tempted even to plug in my iPhone and use Apple CarPlay the whole time I've had this vehicle. While I do like CarPlay and Android Auto, I kind of see them as a bit of a crutch for manufacturers who haven't developed the best infotainment systems. The system in this Palisade is really excellent. You can search for your destination very easily. It pulls everything up very quickly. It knows traffic. It knows how to reroute you. And I don't see the need to use something like CarPlay when the system in this car is that good. Moving down the center stack a little bit, you do have dual zone climate control with a 3rd zone for the rear. There's some vents in the ceiling for those passengers. We'll talk about back passenger comfort in a minute. You do have this interesting push button gear selector. A lot of people get kind of wigged out by different gear selectors that aren't a traditional, PR&D shifter. This is a more luxury and tech-heavy vehicle versus the Telluride, so you do get this push-button shifter. Like I said, they do both operate the same 8-speed automatic. I like the push-button shifter. I don't see the need to have something big that you move around because it's, everything's electronic at this point. What's the point? Let's save some space and get a bigger console for storing things or better use of space in the interior. Next to that, you do have the drive mode selector, which offers a variety of different driving modes. And going into sport mode is truly hilarious. The cluster explodes into this red aggressive looking set of gauges with a different font, and it's all just kind of silly to me because this vehicle is not sporty in the least. It's worth mentioning with the Palisade that you do have a 360-degree set of cameras, so you can see all around the vehicle in pretty much any scenario. Pretty cool. The coolest piece of this whole camera setup is that when you put your turn signal on, either left or right, the appropriate big dial in the big LCD gauge cluster will turn into a camera view of your blind spot. This is really, really cool. The Palisade does have blind spot monitoring, so you've got that standard feature as well. But if you can't quite see everything with the mirror, the camera gives you just another view. And as we talk about the blind spot monitoring and 360-degree camera, let's talk about all the other driver assistance technology in this vehicle. The Palisade has everything you would expect for a new family vehicle in 2020. Other notable options besides the blind spot monitoring and 360-degree camera in this vehicle include the adaptive cruise control, the lane keep assist, and the rear cross-traffic alert. Everything driver assistance-wise works pretty well, exactly as you'd expect, no big surprises. So with all that, let's move to the second row. It's worth mentioning, of course, the driving experience of the Palisade is for comfort above all else. The driving experience behind the wheel is totally fine. The vehicle's comfortable, the steering is fine, everything about it is predictable, it's easy, it handles well, but there's nothing really groundbreaking in how the Palisade drives or handles. It's just nice. Sitting in the second row makes you realize this is the place to be. These seats are very comfortable. You've got two captain's chairs. You can option the vehicle to have a second row bench, but I really don't know why you would. The captain's chairs are great. Both second row seats have this armrest. You have two cup holders in the doors. And the nice thing is the second row can slide forward and back. So if you don't have anyone in the third row, you can sit as far back as possible and get maximum leg room, which is what I've got now. If you do have a third row, you can just move the seat forward a bit. I still have leg room, and it gives third row passengers a more realistic seating space. On the back of the center console, you do have the third zone controls for the tri-zone climate control. That controls the vents in the ceiling and the floor back here. The really cool thing is that you have not only heated second row captain's chairs, but cooled second row captain's chairs. This is the place to sit if you're on a road trip. These seats are just great. You've also got a little privacy shade, sunshade here, so kind of blocks the sun or, keeps the paparazzi away. And then finally, the front of the Palisade has a regular retractable opening sunroof, and then back here for the second and third rows, you do have this panoramic piece of glass. It doesn't open, but there is a shade that can be controlled by a power control if you want the sun to stop beating down on you. But it's nice, it makes the interior feel pretty airy, even with all of this black leather and trim. Now, getting into the third row of the Palisade is as easy as it can be for a three-row crossover. Minivans make things a little bit easier with the sliding doors, but this is really pretty simple. There are buttons on the top of each second row seat that let the whole thing move forward as much as it can to give easy access. And like I said, if you're willing to have the second row passengers slide their seats forward just a hair, you've got a very usable third row seat. Now, I'm a little bit on the taller side. I'm about 6'1", and the fact that I can sit in this third row and actually be comfortable is really pretty great. There's a lot of three-row crossovers on the market that are this size, they're in this category. There's no way I could do a cross-town trip, let alone a short road trip. I think in this Palisade, I'd be comfortable doing a 1-hour road trip, maybe a little bit longer, because there's really plenty of space back here. Additionally, you've got the vents on the roof for airflow. You've got some cup holders back here. Both left and right side seats have USB ports if you're looking to charge a device. And then the best part is the power seat controls. So if you're looking for just a little bit more headroom, you can kick the seat back and stretch out. So there's a quick overview of how the Palisade works as a 7-person people mover. It's one of the largest vehicles in its class for interior volume, and it really shows. Everything is packaged smartly. The fact that you could get 6 tall people in this car is really quite fantastic. There is a third seat here in the middle. I think you could squeeze a third adult if you're doing 3 across, but that would not be for a long trip. That would just be for, in a quick pinch going across town. So with all that said, how does this Hyundai Palisade work when you stop trying to put people in it and start trying to use it as a motorsports weekend support vehicle? Now, unfortunately, this particular test vehicle does not have the optional tow package on it, so I was unable to hook a trailer up and see how it would actually tow. Like I said, it's got plenty of power and torque. I think it would pull an open trailer with a lighter, smaller car on it totally fine. The 5,000 pound rating is enough for an open trailer and a Miata, a Mini, an S2000, maybe a smaller BMW. You know, there's ways you could tow with this. But motorsports trackside weekend type support is not all about towing. It's also about how much you can haul if you need to bring spare parts, spare tires, things like that. And I do need to move some tires, so let's see what I can fit and how well. Alright, so first things first, we need to get all these seats tucked away. Now, in a lot of vehicles, you've got some seats that are powered, some seats that are not. In the Palisade, you've actually got everything powered when you move up to this limited trim. So, if you look over here, you've got some buttons for both second and third row. So, this is all power folding. The third row is power folding down and back up. The second row is just a power release that goes down. So we'll start with the third row. You can push both of these at the same time. And they're moving at different speeds because I had the bigger portion of the back seat reclined a little bit more to fit myself in. But let's say we want to kick the second row seats down as well. Again, just move right over here and hit both of these, and you really do have quite the load space back here with everything folded. And so that's the 2020 Hyundai Palisade. Obviously, this is not the sportiest vehicle, this is not the most capable when it comes to towing and hauling, but it's a pretty good all-around solution if you need to move a lot of people and occasionally a lot of things and maybe a small track car or race car. Thanks for coming along today, and as always, if you're interested in keeping up with what LGBT folks are doing both on the street and on the racetrack, please do subscribe to us right here on YouTube or follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll have a full written review of this vehicle coming soon on outmotorsports.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.